So my name is Rod Graham. I'm an associate professor at Old Dominion University, and this is my YouTube channel, Conversations and Perspectives. And what I've been doing of late is inviting people on to talk about cultural issues. And so by chance, I ran across this really smart brother here who has written this book, and I want to talk about it. I think he's got some pretty good and interesting opinions. And so this is going to be a fun conversation for me. So this is Wes Chase. And I think I'll let him say more about himself.
All right. Well, appreciate you for having me on, Brother Roderick. I'm glad that you got this YouTube channel. Hopefully, we hope to grow it. I'm going to do everything I can to get some people over here. But again, my name is Wesley and Chase. I'm originally from the Bayside District in Virginia Beach. I graduated from ODU, where you are currently teaching. And I graduated with a degree in information technology in my current field. Wesley and Chase is actually my author name. It's a name I use on the internet, and it originates from the neighborhood that I grew up in, Virginia Beach, which is called Wesley and Chase. So that's where the actual name comes from. I've enjoyed my life in this area. I love this area. I see all the different potential, all the different opportunities. The Seven City, we got a lot to offer here, and I just want to help grow the area and just play my part. In addition to that, I would have to say that I want to build the strongest and healthiest Black community possible here. I think we have already a strong Black community. We don't realize it just yet, but I've been to some other places where Black men can't walk up and down the street and talk to each other like we can here. We can acknowledge each other, say what up, bruh, and talk to complete strangers without any real issues. And I think we take that for granted in this area. But as you travel, you see different things and you experience different things, and you realize that where you come from is special. And I think where we're at right now is a special place. So again, I don't want to be separate from the nation. I'm not trying to create a community that's separated. I want to be able to basically contribute to better shaping and influence on our area, and that kind of flows into why I wrote the book as well. So okay. That's who I am in a nutshell.
I feel that, man. So I tend to be in a lot of white spaces because of my job and also some of my interests. So at the same time, I do have an affinity for the Black community. So whenever I get the chance, whether it's going to church in a Black community, which of course I'm going to do, but shopping at Black stores or businesses. So where I am, so you're in Virginia Beach, I'm in Norfolk. There's an area around Park Place, around Church Street.
Absolutely.
That's and so and there's been some gentrification there a little bit, but it's still a Black area. Yeah. And so when I can, I try to patronize the businesses there. So no, man, I understand that. It's not really about separatism. It's just about investing in your community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel that, man. So let's see here. You have this book, right?
Yes.
Now, before you tell us about the book, I'd like to know, like why'd you even decide to sit down and put this on paper?
I have I say this a lot. I have decade goals. So I had goals between 30 to 40. I've already started making my 40 to 50 goals. I'm not 40 yet, but I'm about to get there very soon by the end of the year. But one of my decade goals for 40 to 50 was to write a book of any kind. It's just a challenge, if you will. And so I didn't know what I was going to write about, to be quite honest. So I started just kind of thinking about it around two, 3 years ago. And I said, I'm going to write a book on perspective. I didn't really start writing it at the time. I didn't start doing anything with it. But in, was it 2018? Yeah. So 2018, I actually started really thinking about it. I was like, 40's coming up. What am I going to write about? I don't want to wait till I'm 47. I may want to do it earlier. So I started writing ideas down, and that turned into actually started writing a book. And so that book, again, was on perspective, how perspective affects your mood, impacts your daily life, and how you see yourself, and just how changing your perspective actually changes who you are as a person, just depending on the way you look at things. And so the name of that, so the name of that book was going to be "It's Not You, It's Me," as basically to look in the mirror and say, hey, it's me that needs to be changed. So as I was writing that book, I kept coming back to themes of Black community and what I thought about Black American culture. And that's, as I started going down that pathway, that led into this juxtaposition, if you will, between Black American culture and Black hip hop culture. And what I saw Black people tapping out of being Black, really. I saw a brain drain, and this brain drain's been going on for a long time, since I was a kid. But in the last 10 to 15 years, I've seen it a lot worse, in my opinion, or maybe I've paid attention to it a lot more. And I think we're losing great ideas. I think we're losing great people. Mainly because
hold on. When you say tapping out from being Black,
yes,
I mean, they say, okay, you know, I've got an education now, so I'm going to move out of the Black community.
Yes, they're basically saying they're just not identifying with the Black community anymore. It becomes more of a introspective, I'm going to take care of me and my family. What those Negroes do over there is what those Negroes do. You know, that kind of thing. And that is a tap out. That's dangerous. And I think part of that is, again, that's why I got into writing my book, because I said we have to really decide as a Black American culture, what is the legacy that we're going to uphold? What is it that we're really going to give to our children? What is it that we want to say as a Black American culture? And I found that to be very separate from what Black hip hop culture is and the hip hop community in general. So that's where the book came in, if you will.
Okay.
That's how I got to writing what I wrote. And it flowed very easily. I wrote it within 2 to 4 months, basically, and published it the same year myself. So
that's awesome, man. So okay, I got it. You know, you see this, and that's the title, As the Chasm Grows, right?
Chasm Grows, yes.
Right. So you saw some Black folks moving out of the Black community and sort of distancing themselves, and then you got Black American culture and hip hop culture. So
yes,
describe those two things for me.
Okay. Well, let me first start with how I kind of came to this as well. One of the things that I started to ask people, Black people, especially Black men, is like, do you not feel Black at all? Because if you don't feel like a Black person at all, I think that's one thing, right? Yeah. But then I would ask, hey, well, do you not feel Black by the standards of what hip hop culture tends to say is what it means to be Black?
Well, wait, what person is going to say they don't feel? I mean, it's impossible.
Oh my God, there's plenty of people. There's plenty of people who won't acknowledge themselves as Black, which is fine with me. You have the right to acknowledge yourself as. There are people who call themselves Moors, for instance. They'll say, "Well, I'm not Black. I'm a Moor," and that's fine. That's a whole different show and a whole different conversation. But I don't have a vanity issue in that way. I don't need you to identify the same way I identify to be able to work with you to improve our community. Like, we know we're in the same community, no matter what you call yourself. I don't particularly go by African American. Like, that's not a term I use. I don't mind it, but it's not a term I use. I use Black and Black American to describe myself. And so there are plenty of people who said, you know what? It's not that I don't feel Black. It's just that what is represented in hip hop as what it is to be Black is what I don't feel like. And so it's always changed the perspective and the narrative of what you feel about yourself and what you feel about your people. And so I've used that to talk about, I'll tell you how I believe the Black community in America is set up. In this country, we have different cultures under our community. We have Black African culture. And so you have Kenyans and Ghanaians and Nigerians who bring their culture, parts of their culture, to contribute to our Black community here. Like, we have Black Caribbeans, Jamaicans, our brothers and sisters from St. Thomas. They bring their culture here and contribute to the Black community. Black Latinos, Black Dominicans and Afro-Cubans. We have Black Americans, those of us who are descendants of enslaved people in the United States. And now you have what I'm saying is Black hip hop culture, which is comprised of various Black cultures. There's people from all over the community within Black hip hop culture. But the thing is that they are representing their way of life and they're identifying their culture as hip hop. They're not identifying their culture as any of the Black African cultures. They're saying that their culture is hip hop. So a question I would ask you is, do you believe that hip hop is a real culture in and of itself?
You know what? Honestly, I never thought of it that way. I always thought of it as I didn't. I always thought of it as like a extension of Black, like coming out of Black culture, right?
Yes.
So this is a new way of thinking about it for me. It is.
Yeah. So to me, hip hop culture is absolutely, undoubtedly, and that's why I sent you that link at that, at the before, where KRS-One talks about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, Nick Cannon's in trouble, man. You saw that, right?
Yes, yeah. We talked about that at another time too. So yes, hip hop culture is a real culture. Now the thing is, by default of being Black, am I automatically a part of hip hop culture? And my answer is no. I don't know what your answer would be.
Say that again. You kind of went out with the audio.
Oh, I apologize. So by default of being Black, am I automatically a part of hip hop culture?
Oh, I see.
So, no, you're not. you're not.
Okay.
And so why I'm saying this is that we can acknowledge where hip hop culture came from. No one is sitting up here acting like hip hop culture did not start in the Black community.
Right.
We're not doing it. We can acknowledge where it came from, but hip hop has opened its arms and it has embraced so many different races and so many different cultures of people. I think hip hop was originally created in the spirit of uplifting and inspiring others. But with all the different influences over the years, it's grown way beyond the confines of being called a subset of Black American culture. Of course, it's still heavily influenced by Black American style, our language, our communication. But overall, at this point in 2020, it is not representative or equivalent to Black American culture. It never has been, in my opinion, because I can use my parents as an example. I always like to say they were born in 1952. They don't know anything about it. Does that make them less Black? Does that make them less Black American? So we can't sit up here and act like hip hop is some equivalent culture to Black American culture. It is not. It was the voice of Black youth at one point in time, late 70s throughout the 80s into the 90s. But look at all the people that hip hop has embraced. Even in that KRS-One clip, what did he say? Even if all the African Americans ruined hip hop, this culture would take it over. This race of people would take it over because it has embraced all those different people, and that's why it is dangerous. Let me put it to you like this.
All right.
The mistake that I think to try to make hip hop a subset, if we keep going down this road of trying to make hip hop a subset of Black American culture, because there are so many different races and cultures within hip hop, it worries me that people are going to try to identify with our very specific community and cultural challenges as Black people in America. That bothers me greatly. I think when you invite other races in your culture as a mainstay, right, they start to have a say-so. We have to start listening and accepting their opinions in greater detail because now they're a part of our culture. They have a stronger and more permanent voice. I'm not going to go to East LA in California and tell Mexican Americans how to culturally grow and what's best for their community. That's not what I'm going to do. And we as Black American people have to start reclaiming our culture and how the direction we want our, pretty much, I put it like this. This is not a versus discussion. This is not a Black hip hop versus Black American culture. It's not about division. This is not about division. It's about definition and direction of where we want our Black American culture to go and how we want to define it.
That's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. Now, I am a little older than you. I was born in 75, so I'm about to be 45. So I was a teenager and in my 20s during maybe the golden age of hip hop, Tupac, Biggie, Wu-Tang Clan, these guys. So, but I was like so nerdy. I was never really a part of it, right? It just didn't, attract me. But the way you're talking about it is different than the way that I would have understood it. I saw it as like, okay, this is just like there's this surface, or sorry, this foundation of Black culture, which is rooted in slavery, segregation, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then out of that, comes the hip hop, and it's just like a surface thing. You're saying something different that I didn't quite know or think about until now, that this is a separate, like almost a separate body of ideas or things.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll give you an example. Let's play a quick game. Mm-hmm. All right. You remember last year, February, March, there was a blackface scandal. You remember this? In
Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was tell me what the blackface scandal was, just in a couple of words. I'm gonna prove something to you right now.
And I don't know. Wasn't it the governor who took some picture of at a party or something, right?
Bingo. Now, let me break this down for you. So, at the exact same time, I couldn't have asked for a more perfect example after I published my book. I couldn't believe it happened. In February and March of 2019, there were actually 2 blackface scandals, right? Okay. There was the governor of this state of Virginia, who had his old yearbook, and he had, blackface, and he had the Klansmen took a picture. Right. Mm-hmm. But there was also a blackface scandal in fashion, where it was Gucci and Prada were using these monkey-like blackface designs on their clothing. Did you hear about this at all?
No, I didn't hear.
You know why you didn't hear about this? Because you're not a part of hip hop culture. It's not your culture. So if you go back just a year ago, this is 5 years, this is literally a year and a half ago. If you go back, 2 blackface scandals happened at the exact same time. What did Black hip hop culture focus on? Go look at what the rappers were talking about. It happened in the same month. They were talking about, oh, we got to boycott Prada and Gucci and all this stuff. And Black Americans were like, yo, we have to talk about the racism in the Democratic Party. This is a problem. So you
wait a minute. Okay, I get that example. You're right. I didn't know anything about this Gucci blackface stuff.
Exactly.
But look though, now, all right, so let me push back a little bit. Are you telling me that those hip hop artists who are concerned about the Gucci stuff, they don't go back in their communities and, associate with people who may not be a part of the
of course they do. Game? Of course they do. It's not about division. It's about what our goals and aims are. And there's nothing wrong. We're not having a conversation about they were wrong for focusing on that. I'm having a conversation about the ideal, or the ideas of what people are thinking about. So in Black hip hop culture, there was a movement to basically boycott Prada, boycott Gucci, and stop spending their money there. But in Black American culture, we're like, listen, the Democratic governor of a state has possibly a very racist past. There was also another issue in Maryland, a little known issue, where there was a House representative who was saying, oh, she was joking with her colleague and saying, oh, I see you out there campaigning in nigger districts. She literally said that. And so we had this conversation as Black Americans, like, yo, it's no secret that the majority of Black people in this country vote with the Democratic Party. It's not really a secret. So it's like, if this is the party that's going to represent us, and we have these racists possibly in the party, or these bigots possibly in the party, we have to correct that. That's the path that you saw Black Americans go down. You saw Black hip hop representatives go down the path of, hey, let's stop spending our money with Gucci and Prada. 2 very different takes on blackface.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. It didn't mean they didn't care. I'm not saying Black hip hop culture didn't care about what was going on in the Democratic.
Let me close that email. Let's make it noise.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, let's don't keep doing it. Okay.
So I'm not saying that they didn't care in that way. I'm just saying, what was their focus? Sometimes the aims and the goals are just different, and that's fine. We actually end up covering more ground.
You know what? But before you keep going, I think you're absolutely right. You said something earlier about it's not about difference. It's about division. Definition and direction. About direction. And so this same thing occurs with me when I talk about issues of diversity. So okay, a school or a business might say, okay, we want to be more diverse, and let's say they're in a 50% black city or something. Okay. Their idea of diversity is something very different than mine. So they will bring in people of different types. So to make it more specific, you're in a high school and you want to make your teaching staff more diverse. Your population is 50% black, 50% white, something like that. Yeah. Which is very unusual. It's never always like that, but let's just assume. Okay, so they decide to make it more diverse by bringing in a Southeast Asian math teacher. Now, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But when I think of diversity and how it might help, or affirmative action, how it might help, I'm looking at specifically what's going on there.
Exactly.
And so the direction of that diversity needs to be towards the black and white, and the black students in that class. In other words, you need to hire a black person.
The actual facts on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like to say. That the actual facts on the ground is you have black students and white students, and the teaching staff needs to reflect that.
Right. So yeah, I get it. You want to be diverse and all. It's not doing with my mic. You want to be diverse and all, but and I'm fine in the abstract with that. But deal with what's going on. And so when I articulate that to people, I have to be like you and say, look, this is not about division. This is about the direction that we think we should go based on the facts on the ground. Yeah.
And so when we start talking about within us, within our community, we just need to recognize our differences. We got to learn how to work together. Again, for me, particularly between Black hip hop and Black American culture, we are constantly trying to rob each other of our Blackness because of certain aspects of life, whether it be educational level, political affiliation. I know we're going to talk about who we date and marry. We're going to talk about that a little later. Mm-hmm. So we're always trying to do that. And that has to stop because, again, many of us don't have a connection with hip hop culture outside of the entertainment aspect, whether we just listen to the music or we enjoy entertainment aspects for it. We don't identify with it as a culture, but yet we're letting hip hop kind of influence what we do and how we act as a Black American as a Black American community and culture. That has to stop. So my book kind of sets out to say, hey, we're different. That's okay. Let's learn how to work together. Let's learn how to improve the community as a whole because we can cover more ground and get more things done. With the example I gave, if we really considered ourselves one culture, then we would have been fighting with each other saying, we don't care about Prada and Gucci over there. That's not what's important. This is what's important. So, and then they would have been saying, hey, well, no, we spend a lot of money with these people. Financial strength is what's important. So then you have this infighting between Black folks and neither one of the issues are getting fixed. And so that's what is so important about just acknowledging the differences in the cultures and what we need to work on and how we need to press forward. So we're not accusing each other of saying, hey, you're wrong for doing what you're doing over there. We can just cover more ground.
I wonder if this is like class differences. Like what happens when a Black family, they start making a lot of money, maybe their interests change a little bit. And so they might still vote Democrat, but they have different ideas.
Yeah, I don't think so because there's plenty of people in hip hop who have money now. You know what I'm saying? There's plenty of people, not just the entertainers that we see every day. There's filmmakers in hip hop. There's producers, there's showrunners and concert promoters. There's plenty of people in hip hop who make money and are still embedded with the culture, which is beautiful, by the way. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to get rid of the hip hop community or Black hip hop culture. I'm just trying to say, hey, we have some differences. The chasm is growing. That's the point of the title. And this is the direction we're heading in. Let's embrace it and let's figure out how to best work together. That's it.
That's cool, man. That's cool, man. And it's really interesting to me. As I've said now, more than once, that I had never thought about it that way. It's certainly something that I should explore a little bit more and learn more about.
I wrote a book. Go buy it.
That's right. Now I'll make sure and link it in the in the description on the video here. Yeah. And it's on ebook as well, right? So they can
ebook or physical book. It's all on Amazon. It's a whole nother conversation about getting it in the bookstores. I mean, even black bookstores have been a little iffy with me because of the title and the subject matter. So it's interesting. It's been an interesting.
That is interesting.
Journey.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey about who's interested in the book and who's not and things like that. But I'm selling books. I get a great response from it. So I'm happy about that.
I'm sure you sell more books than I do. I have 2 books.
You have 2 books out?
Yeah, but they're not the kind that people read. They're like, you know, books.
That's fair.
So I respect the process, and I think you're getting a little bit more in terms of sales than I would. But I need it for my job, you know. So yeah. So and the thing, so I guess I need to. If you're telling me that a lot of bookstores may not have been interested in it, then
independent bookstores.
Bookstores.
Yeah, some independent bookstores.
Because the subject matter is controversial.
Well, if controversial is the word we would probably use, but they would just probably use, they don't want to disrespect. Hip hop makes a lot of money for people. You know what I'm saying? Like I've had potential interviews with radio DJs in this area. And once we've started talking, they're like, oh no, we can't talk about this. Like, I mean, literally they will not have, I'm not going to name anybody, but we can't have a discussion about it. Right. I get it. That's your money. That's your bread and butter. You know, I totally understand it. My word's going to get out to the people I wanted to get out to anyway.
Honestly, I don't get it. I don't, because what you just told me.
People, when you start talking about, we just talked about Nick Cannon, didn't we? You start messing with people, and you know he came back and apologized for what he said.
Well, he came back and apologized. They still fired him.
They still fired him. And he still made that apology because he was like, y'all ain't gonna mess up the rest of my money. And you know what I'm saying? Like, y'all, this is tanked, but y'all ain't gonna continue to mess up my money. So
I'm saying the way you described it to me was not a negative. You weren't saying that there's something wrong.
I don't think so either. But some people don't want it. They don't want to go down, and that's fine with me. It's all good. This book's gonna get out. The word's gonna get out, and that's all that's important.
All right. Okay. Well, that's cool. So look now, let's shift a little bit. And I saw you through Kobe Smith's channel, which I'm just starting to watch a little bit.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've heard about this desire to talk about the differences in Blackness between what I would say is ADOS or ADOS. And then Black American, and then African immigrants, you know, making this distinction.
Yes.
You guys talk about that a lot.
Yes.
So I think one of the questions I wanted to ask you was about some conservatives and some commentators will say, look at Black Africans, Nigerians especially.
Yeah.
Those guys come over here, and this is true. They come over here and they do well. Right? They get advanced degrees, they have high incomes, they build wealth. What's the deal with Black Americans? Yeah. How do you respond to that?
Okay, well, first, let me shout out Kobe. Kobe has a great platform. He's a brother that's actually lived in Africa. He's lived amongst the people for years. He knows what everyday life is in African countries is like. So that's one of the reasons he's a really good person to talk to about it.
Okay.
So our discussions do range from the animosity, if you will, that exists between a lot of Black immigrants who come to America and may look down on Black Americans because they believe we squander opportunity here, excuse me, or various other issues they may perceive within our culture. But I think to compare a select few Black African immigrants to the whole of our population is disingenuous, and it doesn't make much sense. And the reason why is it would be the equivalent is if we drop you, me, educated Black men off in an African country of any choice, and what are we going to do in that country? We're likely going to excel above the native people there, right? Because guess what? When we're in a different country, those native people have challenges that we don't have to face. It's as simple as that.
Right.
There's going to be poverty. There's going to be crime. There's going to be people who are not educated, people who aren't going to school. There's the whole dynamic. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's the whole dynamic of a people when you go to a native place. So that's what you're dealing with here. You're dealing with all Black Americans. You're dealing with our entire dynamic and trying to compare, you know, in this case, Nigerians, if we use them, trying to compare Nigerians who clearly have some money, who have some way of getting over here, they're already driven in their own country. So instead of comparing them directly to me and you, guess who they're going to compare them to? Some of our brothers and sisters who don't have the same opportunities, who may still live in abject poverty. So that's what they're doing, and that's why it's disingenuous to do that. They need to, if you're going to take those few people, you need to compare them to the people who are on the same road. I don't like to use like the Black elite. I don't like to use words that are of higher class. I think of class as something different. But people who are in the same realm, you know, you can't sit up here and compare the Nigerian who's going to college with the person who doesn't have a father in the home, you know, mother's working 3 jobs, may have gotten into crime early on. It's like, why are you comparing them to? It doesn't even make sense. You need to compare them to somebody who's in the same college they are. That's what makes sense. So that's why it's just disingenuous to do so. I think ultimately a lot of immigrants, not just Black immigrants either, I think that a lot of them play into this buffer class thing that I like to talk about. They see an opportunity to come here. They use Black Americans as a stepping stone, if you will, to insert themselves in that buffer class between Black Americans and white Americans, because that's just the dynamic. That's the biggest dynamic of the United States of America. That's the longest history, is Black Americans and white Americans. They'll insert themselves in that buffer class, and that just causes some issues when we talk, especially when we talk about Black immigrants that come here. That causes some issues and some division within the community that we have to work out. And we have to, you know, that's on us to work that out.
Yeah, you know, when I was in New York City working on my PhD, I had to work my way through school, and I was working at this community college, and my job was to speak. So this is in Queens, and my job was to speak to the high schools and community organizations, the kids there, speak to the kids that would go to those places, like Y or something. And so this is Queens, and so it's heavily immigrant. And so those kids would come, and they would be students who are, actually, no, let me back up. That's a different story. Forget that. There's a point to that later, but I might get to that later. But my job was at LaGuardia Community College, and so I would advise F1 students who are also immigrants, right? Of course, F1 students have to show something to get here. So the idea that it's these poor students coming with nothing and scrapping is not exactly true, man. You can't even come here legally without demonstrating something. And then on top of that, demonstrating you got some money in the bank. And then on top of that, if you are coming, that's saying something about what your family thinks. It's like a self-selection type thing.
Yes.
It's not the people who are struggling or their perception of the world doesn't lead them to education. No, it's the people who already want to get that. That's why they're here. Yeah.
So that's why it's disingenuous to have these kind of conversations about, look at the Black immigrants over there and they're doing so well. Well, there's Black Americans doing well, you know. But again,
that's right.
If we drop us off in Kenya and Ghana and Nigeria and some of these places, we're going to do well there too, because that's just the drive of who we are. And then you're comparing us to the whole population, and what are we going to look like? We're going to look like we excel and we're advanced, and it's not the whole picture. So it's just a way to sow division and seeds of discord. That's all it is.
No, you're right. The thing that worries me is that a lot of people don't think so deeply about it.
Yeah.
Both Black and white. So I can imagine a lot of Black people saying, well, gosh, you know, what's up? You know, why are we not doing what those people who, you know, of course have the same skin tone, you know, but are Nigerian? Like, what's so special about them? I wonder if that plays in the minds sometimes of young people. I don't know for sure. But I worry about that. And then, but I know for sure that a lot of white folks and Black conservatives, they do, like you said, use those Nigerians as a way to say, look, you know what, they can do it. Why not you? You know, so.
And let's be clear, I got love for any Black immigrant who comes over here and excels. Salute. I don't, you know, my love for my Black American tribe, if you will, is not rooted in the discord or dysfunction of what Black immigrants come here and do. You know, come here, just work with us. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't come here and try to step on us and look down on us and things like that. That's where it becomes problematic. But that's a different show.
Right. And I've been lucky. I haven't experienced that, and I don't. You know, the people that I work with and the people who I've known wherever I've lived, it's been, you know,
yeah, been pretty
I
good.
have not seen it, but I've read this kind of about this kind of stuff. So
yeah, I had an incident in college where one of my Kenyan friends told me I was one of the good ones, and I said, nigga, what? I gave him one of those, and I was like, what you said? And he was like, no, I didn't mean it that way. I was like, no, you did mean it that way. That's something like you would hear a prejudiced white person say. A bigoted white person uses that. But I understood what he was saying, but still, he didn't get. You know, I kind of snapped off on him for a minute.
Yeah, they don't get it. I mean, how can they? They don't know. I mean,
yeah, but he didn't get it, and so I had to explain it to him. Yeah, I was, you know, it's cool and everything.
Yeah,
I had to explain it to him that, you know, hey, don't look at. I'm not going to play into that. That, oh, like, that's not a seal of approval to me. Not from another Black man, not from a white man, not from any other race. I don't see that as a seal of approval. Some people don't have the drive for various reasons because they don't have the self-confidence. Some people, their family situations are different. You put them in a different situation, they would have been something different. So I'm not going to look down at my brothers and sisters and be like, you're right, you know, I am one of the good ones. And you know, when I know what's going on with in our community, I know what's going on. And I just, you know, challenge him to be a better person within the community, because this is still his community too. He lives in this country. And since you're here, you're part of this Black community. That's just, that's how it goes.
And I don't blame immigrants in that way because they don't know the racial history of the U.S. You know, they
some of them don't.
Some of them don't.
Some of them don't. Some of them do. It depends. I have to take that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
Because it's easy for some of them to use ignorance.
But they can't know, man. How can they know? I mean,
man, like I agree. Because my thing, I agree that some of them don't know. Because I say, man, sometimes we're so self-centered as Americans in general that we think everybody knows everything about us. Like, they have their own history and their own country and their own issues. You know what I'm saying? They see this, you know, so they see this country as a place of opportunity. So when they come here, no, they may not have studied American history, but lots of them do know our history. They know our heroes and heroines of the civil rights movement. They know the history of slavery. I don't know what they're taught in their schools about their role, especially in West Africa when it comes to slavery. That's a whole nother discussion. But some of them do. It just depends on who you're talking to. So I can't say they all do, but I will agree some of them don't. And so, you know, they have to, you know, find their way. And that's fine with me. I don't have any issues with that.
You got more. Look, man, I've gone through the educational system, right? Born here, you know, obviously, but it wasn't until recently that I got the full extent of stuff, you know. So yeah, I know about slavery and I know about civil rights, right? I know about that stuff, you know, about King, you know, but all this stuff in between, Reconstruction, sharecropping, convict leasing, all this stuff, it's only the last like 5 or 7 years where, you know, now that stuff is becoming more public. Like even the 1619 Project, you know, I didn't grow up learning about, you know, all this stuff. So if I don't know, and the thing about not knowing is you want to attribute the failure of Black folk to themselves because you don't understand that there's other things going on. And so I didn't know. I was like, well, okay, what, you know, what's the problem, you know? You know, slavery was over. You know, I had this, you know, thought process. You know, slavery was over a long time ago. Civil rights movement a long time ago. It wasn't. But
It
that's the way
wasn't.
I'm thinking. That's right.
It wasn't.
And I'm thinking like that. And of
Wasn't.
course, you know, no, man, no.
Yeah,
So
not at all. So there's lasting impact, there's lasting trauma, and but the thing is, that's something that we as Black Americans, we can't depend. This is a whole nother topic too. We can have about 14 different shows on different topics, but that's something that we in our community have to get back to teaching ourselves. We can't leave that up to the school system. That doesn't make any sense. That's our fault. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we need to learn our own history and teach our own history. So I don't blame the school system completely. That's on us. We're an oral tradition people any damn way. So there's really no excuse for not teaching each other what has gone on in the pain and the suffering and the success as well. Everything's not pain, suffering, and misery in this country. You know, I was just talking to somebody about William Flora. I don't know if you know who that is. Most people do not. William Flora is a Black man who was born free, died free in the 1600s. Excuse me, sorry, 1700s. He fought in the Revolutionary War. You know what I'm saying? People don't even think about the Black men that fought to make this country a country. He was born in Portsmouth. You know what I'm saying? He's born in Portsmouth, Virginia. Anybody who wants to look up William Flora. So to not know these stories is also problematic. We can't just continue to have stories that is, oh, we were slaves and that's all or not slave, we were enslaved, if you will, and that's all we were in this country. Like, that is a problematic narrative. And
yeah,
so
I agree.
we have to start learning our history and teaching more of our history. But that's on us. We can't blame somebody else for that.
You're right. And you know, I'm optimistic about that.
Yeah.
I just said that the civil rights movement was recent. That's true. I'm the first generation to have full citizenship rights in this country. The first.
Absolutely.
My mom didn't have it, you know. I am. And so people like me are the ones that are now producing that material for Black people. Like we can now look back and identify those instances of success, like you pointed out with William Flora. And there are many others. You're right. It's not all about this, you know, failure. So yeah, and so on that line, I've seen a change, man. Like now we can talk about white supremacy and racism out in the open. Like I remember growing up, we would say white folks with a whisper. Man, white folks over there. You know, like that's how we would talk. Now forget it, man. You racist. You know, this is white supremacist. This is, you know. So I've seen that change, and it's a positive one for me. You know,
it is.
So look, now both of us are educated Black men.
Yes.
And I don't always get to ask this question. I don't always
we can ask whatever question. I stand on my words. We can ask whatever.
No, I mean, I'm not in the position to, I can tell, man, you know, you're flowing, you know, you got stuff ready, you know what to talk about, and better than me, you know, actually. So you should have a YouTube channel. No,
I'm not, we can talk about, I'm not, that ain't my thing. I'd rather be a guest. I'm not a good host.
Okay, all right. So as growing up, now this could be just like a folk tale, an urban legend, you know, stereotype, whatever. But growing up, it seemed to me that if you were an educated Black male, you were not seen as attractive. Actually, no, I want to ask a different question first, and then we'll lead to that part. Okay. All right. So first, I want to ask: do you think that Black American culture is a bit dismissive of education? Like it doesn't see the value in education?
I think American culture, period, no matter your race, is dismissive of education. We have gotten to a point right now where educated people don't earn good money, and this country is about money. You know, this country is about money. That's the bottom line. It is ingrained in us as Americans. It's not a bad thing. It can be a bad thing, but if you let it control every aspect of your life. But it's just not Black Americans or Black culture. It is American culture across the board, no matter the race, no matter the cultural background.
So there's no acting white, none of that kind of stuff?
Well, I don't believe in that. No, that exists, but that is there are white folks that are dismissive of education as well. So while in our culture, to your point, I understand what you're getting at. To your point, that's the way we dismiss it. But in white culture, they dismiss it another way. Latinos dismiss it another way. You know what I'm saying? So yes, that exists. But as Americans, we are becoming more and more dismissive of education because it does not lead to the lives that we think we should be, especially after you spend all that money on education.
Right.
We don't think it's leading to the lives that we should. What do we value in this country? Entertainment, more than anything. A whole nother show. But but that's what we value in this country. So to your point, yes, Black Americans and Black community, we're dismissive of education, but it's across the board in America.
Okay, yeah, I see. Yeah, that acting white idea is passed around a lot.
Yes.
I don't know, man. I mean,
But to your point about the, like, are Black men less desirable?
Right. Like nerdy Black guys, you know.
Yeah. Like, my thing is this. You know, I believe there's some truth to that, but it's, again, like I said, it's not limited to Black Americans. I just think that if you're talking about Black men in general, let's not blame Black women. Let me start like that. Let's not point the finger at Black women and say, oh, well, Black women don't like nerdy Black men.
Okay, because that's what they do on YouTube. You see that all over.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's where I'm trying to go with this. Let's look in the mirror for a moment. And I would suggest, in my own experience, I would suggest that educated Black men stop trying to play two roles. And let me explain what I mean.
Say that again. I missed it.
The educated Black men, we stop trying to play two roles, like dual roles.
Okay.
Let me explain what I mean by that. Like, never in my life did I try to be a thug. Like, that's just not something I ever tried to do. Despite all the music I listened to, which was in the 90s, was everything was shoot you because you disrespect me, shoot you because you stepped on my shoes, shoot you because you. It doesn't matter. All of that I listened to, I never tried to be a thug. Now, I am going to say, because we're both in the same area, I know a lot of people here have grown up here. Somebody may get in the comments and say, oh, well, I know some stuff he used to do and his real name is. You know what I'm saying? You know, that could actually happen. So I'm not saying I was perfect in my youth. I'm not saying that. I never sold drugs. I'd like to put that out there. Never sold drugs before, but in this area, there were a lot of illegal ways to get money, all right? And maybe I participated in a few of those as a child, right? As a teenager. So, but I never tried to live a street life, right? I had my dad in my life, and I always had someone to look at and say, listen, my dad had far less than I ever did, never ended up in jail. You know what I'm saying? He worked hard. Yeah. And so I always took that to heart. And even though I was selfish at times and wanted money, I never tried to live a street life for real. I always embraced education, which is important. But I remember college guys. We were in college, and there were guys who were trying to be college thugs.
That's right. I saw that too.
I never understood it. And they were doing it to impress women. And yes, they got a few women.
Yes.
Like, they really did. But we have to understand there's always going to be a subset of women, I don't care what the race is, that like the bad boy image, right? It really doesn't matter the race or culture. It's problematic when we try to put that on and paint all or the majority of Black women as, oh, well, all these Black women, they just like thugs. I think that's problematic. My experience, honestly, is that women just don't want a worm of a man. That's how I like to say it. They don't want a worm. You don't have to be a thug, but educated men need to stop trying to cater to what certain women think a man should be and simply be the man you are. Like, that has worked for me my entire life. And if a woman is not happy with, you know, who I am, or she's not attracted to what I'm showing her, we can go our separate ways. There's no animosity. There's no ill will. I don't use a bad experience to say, oh my God, well, all Black women are this way. We just don't, in my opinion, we just don't have enough Black men basically saying to women, to hell with what youth were taught a man is supposed to be. I'm going to show you the man that I am. And I think that comes from so many of us. We just don't have the confidence in the type of man that we really are. I think we are looking for, we're looking for love. We're looking for acceptance. We're looking for attention because so many of us are lacking that in our home life, in our family life, in our family structure. So we're trying to cater to what we think a woman wants instead of just being who we are. I think the flip side of that is the extreme gentleman, which I hate.
Nice guy.
I hate the antithesis. When you try to be the antithesis of the thug or the street guy, I think that is lame too.
Right.
Women can sniff that out. Like they know
That's
in
right.
2 years, you're not gonna be this guy in 2 years, and the women are gonna use you up because you're not being real with them to begin with. So if you want to play a game, you're gonna play the game on their terms. That's how it's gonna go. So these extreme gentlemen who get, their feelings hurt because they're like, oh, this woman did me like this. Well, you weren't being real with her, and you playing the game. So it was about who played the better game at that point. Again, if a particular woman doesn't like you in a certain way, trust me, there are 5 other women somewhere that do. All you need to do, or all we need to do as Black men, is show a woman our personal version of love, and she can take it or leave it. It's as simple as that.
Look, man, I think that a lot, both, so I asked about the answer about the education, and we moved into dating. And, I think I can connect both of those with how the home is set up for a child. So I don't believe you have to have the, traditional mother, father, that would be nice. But if you don't have that, every child needs to have a masculine and feminine influence, however they get that. Like they need role models, basically. They need role models. So it can be an aunt and an uncle or something, but they need that. I think for education, a lot of kids, man, if they don't have the discipline to go through something, like sit down and study and kind of stick with it for a while, they can't develop high-end learning. So a lot of learning is very cumulative. So like if you want to learn, so I teach in the cybersecurity department, although I'm a sociologist, I do like cybercrime stuff. And so if you're trying to learn a computer program, that doesn't require a whole lot of intelligence. It seems like it. But what it actually requires is discipline.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how do you get that? You say again? Oh, that's right. So you probably took some programming class. Yeah. So you need discipline, and you often get that from some kind of masculine influence. And so it doesn't have to be, the father, that would be nice if that's the case, but it needs to be some kind of masculine influence, I believe. I'm saying it that way because, in 2020, you have a lot of same-sex couples, and I think that those can be, or I should put it this way, same-sex or so gay and straight couples both need, I believe, some kind of masculine influence. So they're equal in that.
It's a balance.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So if you love a kid, raise a kid, but it would be nice if that, especially if it's a male, that they have some kind of a heterosexual male, that they have a heterosexual male influence. So anyway, but that leads to discipline. Okay. Yeah. So that impacts school. It also impacts dating. Yeah. I think that a lot of guys, if they didn't see a healthy, if they're a heterosexual male, if they didn't see a healthy heterosexual relationship, and all they saw was their mothers, I think it affects how they deal with women a little bit. Like they're either.
I would agree. I agree with that because they're going to look for, again, I always say, I've always asked women this question. I say, hey, can a man properly raise a girl to be a woman? And every woman says, absolutely not. There's so many things that go on with women that you just are not going to understand as a man.
That's right.
But then when I say, well, can a woman properly raise a man, all the girls stop. And they think, yeah, a woman can properly raise a man. And I try to ask the question, like, we won't even get into right or wrong, but how is it that you believe that's the case? Like, how do you believe that a man can't properly, every woman says a man cannot properly raise a woman, a girl, to know everything it is about being a woman. But for whatever reason, these women believe that they can properly raise men. And the thing is that you can raise a good human being. There's a difference. You know, you can raise a great person. You can raise a great citizen. No one's saying you can't do that. Like, I can raise a great a female citizen, my daughter, if the mom's not around, I can raise her to be a great person. But there's just things about being a woman that I'm just never gonna know or never gonna understand. That a woman needs to teach her. But for whatever reason, we're in a place where we believe that not so much, you know, for men. Like, a woman has all the keys. I've always told girlfriends in my past, like, you didn't get man lessons growing up. You were busy learning how to be a woman, while I was busy learning how to be a man. So while you can tell me what you want, like, you can tell me what you want in a man, but I'm going to show you what a man is, at least the man I am. Right. And again, if you have a problem with that, you can go look for another man, and he can show you what his version of a man is, right? But I'm not going to sit up here and take a bunch of cues from a person a woman who's never been. You're not a man. You were not raised to be a man. You don't know everything we go through, just like I don't know everything you go through. So I think that is to the point of what you're getting at, and why young boys really need a male perspective in their life, just to talk about the things that go on as being a man, especially as a Black man in this society. It's completely necessary. Right. So that's just my thought process on it.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I have to navigate this world, man, where, so most of the time I'm liberal, you know, vote Democratic, progressive, all that stuff. Yeah. But saying that, you know, it will upset some people, because it appears like you're throwing shade on single women, but that's not what I try to do. No.
Yeah, that's not what you're doing. But and that's why I have to ask the question first: can a man that's how you have to approach it every time. Can a man properly raise a young girl to know everything it is about being a woman? Every woman's going to tell you no. I have yet to run into a woman of any race, any culture, any creed to say yes. A man can properly raise a young girl to know everything it is about being a woman. But when you flip that on its head, it's a totally different discussion, because women tend to believe that they can raise their young boys to know everything it is to be a man. And like I said, I tell girls, I say, hey, if I can tell you what I want in a woman, that doesn't mean that's what it means to be a woman. I'm just telling you my preference. You need to show me what it is to be a woman, and I can decide whether I like that. You may show me something I don't know. That's why we have these self-esteem and confidence issues, especially in our community. I think everyone has them. It doesn't matter your race or color. Yeah. But, you know, we're talking about Black community. We have so many of these self-esteem and these confidence issues that we're not confident in who we are. So we're looking for someone else to give us a cue. I'm never looking toward a woman to give me a cue about how I should be as a man. I'm just going to show you who I am. And if you don't like it,
I would even say it a different way. I would say that guys often look for validation in women, right? My worth is based on whether or not, you know, this woman is attracted to me.
Absolutely, 100%.
It shouldn't be like that. You should get validation from your work, from your success, and then you go and you find a partner. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Totally agree.
It's really interesting. I am the product of a single parent home, and looking back on it, I can see how that did impact how I dealt with the opposite sex, and also how I carried myself, how much time I spent on stuff. You know, like I wasn't, to put it in a raw way, I wasn't tough enough in my 20s.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was a little bit tougher, I probably would have done things a little bit differently. I can be real like that now because I turned out okay. You know, so, you know, when things are all right, you can look back on it. And, if I was sitting here struggling, you know, I wouldn't be so real like that.
You have to come to a place where you love yourself. I mean, that's the ultimate thing. I mean, you really do. warts and all and mistakes and all and
That's
things
right.
like that.
That's right.
When you love yourself, people know it. They you know what I'm saying? And some people envy it, you know, you gotta be careful. But people know when you love yourself. You
That's
know what I'm
right.
saying?
That's right.
It exudes from you. So, you know, it is what it is.
And I mentored a kid last summer. I was going to do it again, but the COVID stopped it. Where he is in a single parent home, and I can just see, I was like, man, this kid is me. Like, he's kind of wishy-washy, you know. He wants to win everything, and if I'm beating him in basketball or something, he wants to quit. You know, he doesn't understand that there's more you can extract from losing than winning. He doesn't quite know that kind of stuff yet.
And I'm glad you said that, because we're at a place, especially in our community, you know how we like to say you took a L, you took a loss, right? So there's some people who are trying to change that, and oh, you don't take a loss, it's a learning experience. And I'm like, if you can't accept that you took a loss, there's no way you can learn anything.
That's right.
You have to accept that you just lost at some things, especially if it's a competition of any type. Sometimes you lose, and then you can go down the pathway of learning something. So I think that's a dangerous thing in our community, to be like, oh, it's not a loss, it's a learning experience. Well, you got to accept the loss first.
That's right.
You know, anyway, I just had to get that out.
All right, let's end with this one last thing.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about interracial relationships.
Yes.
Now, for the viewing audience, because I'm pretty transparent on all my videos, so those who actually watch them, they probably know all about my personality at this point. But I am in a interracial marriage. My wife is Korean. And so I like to ask, I'm going to ask Wes this, and I like to ask this question to other Black people, because in a Facebook group that I'm in, I mentioned that I'm in a interracial relationship. So my response was, you can't say nothing about the Black community.
Yes.
You got no right, you know. And I'm like, what a minute, come on now, you know.
Yeah.
So what are your opinions on interracial relationships?
All right, you're going to have to bear with me, because I got a lot to say.
All right.
All right. Unequivocally, I love seeing healthy love between Black couples. And that's mainly because of the negative stereotypes we get. We just don't see it a lot, okay? But as an adult, I have never had an issue with interracial relationships. I think of love and companionship as something very separate, okay? If I talk about my own personal situation, I have a child and I'm in a relationship with a Black American woman. I also have helped and continue to help raise 2 children that are not biologically mine, with another Black American woman who I'm not in a relationship, not dating, or any kind of relationship with her. I just helped to raise her children. That's a whole nother story. But I think the main question that people who have issues with interracial relationships, or people who date outside of their race, is how can you properly be invested in the Black community if you're not personally invested in the Black woman or the Black man in the traditional Black family? That's the question that they are getting at. And they don't do a good job asking it, because it becomes so emotional, it becomes so dismissive. That's where you get that you can't say anything about the Black community comments that I know you get. I am well aware of that line of thought. And I won't lie, personally, I think it's a valid question. You know, for those who date or who are married outside of our race, it's up to you all to decide whether it's worth answering. For me personally, I don't give a damn. You know, it's not, I don't need an answer personally. But don't get upset or all in your feelings when people legitimately ask that question. That's what I would say. People who are, don't get upset, don't get all mad and stuff. Like, it's a legitimate question. So with that said, because I got a lot to say, I think, let me speak on me a little bit more personally. Let me get to that first. Okay, so I don't think I've been in any of the more controversial interracial relationships. I do think we are getting at a point in 2020, we are reaching a point in Black American culture with these acronyms and these initialisms of ADOS and FBA, where dating a woman who is Black but of a
Wait, what is FBA?
FBA is Foundational Black American. That's another one of those initialisms that's out there. Again, I go by Black and Black American. I don't mind those acronyms and those initialisms, but when I talk about myself, I'm Black, I'm Black American. That sits above everything else. Everything else is below that. Or anyway, that's a whole nother show too. I think there are people that look at dating Black people of a different culture as almost dating outside of your race at this point. We are getting to that point in Black American culture, which is interesting. So I've had relationships with Latin women, you know, lighter skinned, you know, Puerto Ricans and Brazilians. I've had relationships with Dominicans and a Panamanian woman who are darker than me. You know, got more African in them than I got. You know what I'm saying? I've had relationships with a Nigerian, a Kenyan, and Eritrean. So I've never been in, I've dated a couple Asians, but I don't think I've ever personally been in, I don't know the societal dynamic, let me put it to you that way, of a long-term relationship with like a white or a European or Asian woman. I don't know what that is like. That is something you'll have to comment on in a minute. But I've always, like I said, I've always looked at love and attraction just in a different light. And so I've had these conversations with Black women, especially since I was probably 16 years old, to be honest. And they would go, well, how can your friends date that white girl over there? How can you deal with that? Like, it's something I got to deal with. But, you know, my response has always been, if you expect men or women to just tap out of being in relationships, to tap out of experiencing love, or acting on attraction because they have to be loyal to their race, you are a crazy person. That is a crazy idea. I like to take things back to high school because I think high school is a very important time. I think it shapes a lot of, who and what we become in life.
Absolutely.
You know, you really decide who you want to be or who you don't want to be after your high school experience. I think it's that important. And in this example, if you're a Black male, if Black females were not attracted to you in high school, and the people that showed you interest were Asian women or white women, again, if anybody is expecting Black men to just ignore possible love interest, to be loyal to their race, that is nuts. And it goes vice versa for Black women. If there are Black women who are dating Asian men or white men or Latino men, if Black men are not showing them interest, because Black women have this issue too. Black men like to think it's all us who have that interest. No, Black women have this issue too, where some Black men won't show them interest, right? So I don't expect these sisters to just forego relationships. This is, again, who you decide to build your life with is just a different, it's just a different dynamic. It's a different problem. It's a different topic. The problem I have is this. It comes in when I hear, I especially hear it from Black men, but I'm hearing it more from Black women too. When Black people say, I would never, like I'd never date a Black woman, right? Or a Black woman says, well, I would never date a Black man. They essentially write off people in our race because of what they see in the media, because of a few bad personal experiences. I know 2 Black women who, when they see this, they're going to call me. They're not going to leave comments, but I'm going to get a phone call. They actually act like white men don't cheat. Like that is their belief. Like white men just don't. They would never cheat on it. It's crazy. And so, and we of course know Black men who act like all Black women are going to do is take money. They don't love you unless you have a big bank account. You know, all they're going to do is cause you grief. And as a people, we get into this habit of like bad mouthing each other in general and not really taking ownership and responsibilities of the experiences and the relationships that we've chosen to be a part of. And that has helped shape these thoughts, these negative thoughts that we have. And again, that's where it gets seriously problematic for me. I have a section at the end of the book where it's called the Ask Yourself section. And there's a couple of questions about interracial relationships there. But again, while I love to see Black love, while I love to see Black families, I have close friends, best friends who are like my brothers, who are in interracial relationships. I've been in weddings of my closest friends who are in interracial marriages. So when it comes to attraction and when it comes to having to deal with an individual for a prolonged period of time, people have to do what is best and what is healthiest for them. Again, I just don't want Black men bashing Black women and vice versa. I don't want us to create a narrative that all, Black women are terrible partners or stress in life. I don't want Black women walking around like all Black men are no good, with thugs, we're just going to cheat. This becomes a self-hate issue at this point. And that's why it took me so long to get here, because that is what it is. It becomes a self-hate issue within us. If the partner that you've chosen is based on attraction, love, again, the desire to build a future, and they happen to be of another race, salute. I don't have any issue with that. Just don't go around degrading Black people to justify why you're in the situation you're in. That's where I get, if you have a litany of bad relationships with your own race, you are the common denominator. You're the problem. That's how I look at it. You are the person who is picking these partners and pursuing these relationships. There are plenty of women that I've dated after a date or two. I know this isn't going to go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? And you have to learn how to discern whether you're just dating to occupy time, whether just, this isn't going to go far. And to expand on that, you have to be honest with the person you're dating. You have to be real with them and let them know what you think, let them know where you are. And so when, if you don't go leading a person on, if you will, you don't want to use somebody up, which happens a lot, I think, in our community. And then when it goes south, Black men act like, well, I don't know what the hell happened to her. She just went crazy. You know what I'm saying? She just went crazy on me. And that's not it. You let her on, you used her up, and now you're acting like, well, what's the problem?
Okay.
So one of my,
go ahead. Go ahead, finish.
Yeah, so one of my mantras in life is, if you have a problem, look in the mirror first. And if we had a lot more people in our community doing that, I think we'd have a healthier community. We'd mature a lot faster. We'd be in a better place. Okay, I'm done.
You're right. You had a lot to say, man.
Yeah, I had a lot to say.
Well, okay. So, all right. You mentioned the how can you be politically invested if you're not personally invested? I like that. Okay. And you also talked about self-hate, like right. And then you mentioned things about your high school experiences and how that molds you. All three of that is interesting, man. Like those are three roads to go down. So I guess the first one would be more, maybe all of those would be interesting to me, but the first one is the one that, or the one about personal and political. That's the first thing you mentioned. I think that's interesting, and that is a very valid question, right? So I can personalize it. How invested am I in the Black community politically if I'm married to a Korean woman, and let's say, 5 years from now, I'm going to Korea for a couple of years to be over there with her. I don't think that's ever going to happen, but hypothetically, it could,
Yeah.
Well, that's true, actually. That is something that needs to be, grappled with. Now, one way that I think about it, though, because I have thought about this, is there are many ways to invest in a community. You can do it through money, right? Economic capital, right? You can invest that way, but you can also do it through mentoring. So like culture, like you go and you invest time that way, which is what I do at the Y, and also mentor a lot of graduate students. And I try and find Black graduate students to mentor. And then another way is kind of with your connections. So like one of the things that I do is, if at all possible, if a Black graduate student comes to me and says, okay, I'm looking for a job. Can you write me a reference? Can you write me something, a recommendation? If at all possible. Now, I won't break my professional ethics. So if I don't know them, and I can't do it. But if at all possible, I will make sure and take time out of my day to do that for him. And I feel like that's a kind of investment. So those are ways that people who, like me, who are in interracial relationships can invest.
And I agree with all that. There's so many other ways. Just being a, a part of this community in trying to set a different tone for, again, what we want our legacy to be. What we love in relationships is just different. I mean, I don't get me wrong. Like I said, I get the question, but trust me, I'm not the person you have to justify it with. I have seen the examples time and time again of Black men who may be in interracial relationships who are just not, they're not here to criticize. The problem is when you get when they think you're just criticizing and you're not coming up with any kind of answers. You're just saying, oh, that's what's wrong with the Black community. You better have answers. And that's all I tell people.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially who are in interracial relationships. You better have some answers, because if all you got is questions, that's when you're going to get that pushback. So I 100% agree with everything you said there.
And then you talked about what happens in high school.
Yes.
And so I remember hearing, this was some time ago, but I remember hearing Wesley Snipes on the radio.
Uh-huh.
And he's married to a Asian woman, I think Korean woman. Any case, I think he was on Howard Stern or something. Howard Stern asked him, "Why are you dating Asian women?" And before that, he was in another relationship with someone who was not Black. So I think that was it was a trend going, and Howard Stern wanted to ask him about it. And so he was like, "Well, when I was in high school, Black women didn't want me." He was just straight up. And
Yeah.
he's a dark-skinned brother, and probably before he was famous, maybe they didn't like him, right?
Yeah.
In the 80s, dark-skinned brothers weren't playing, so or they weren't interesting, I believe, to Black women. It was only later that dark-skinned people, it seemed, became attractive. So I think you're right about that. What happens to you in high school will determine what you do. So you had negative relationships, so you tried to date and it didn't work. Maybe you were very nerdy, and we didn't talk about this part that much, but I get the sense that women who are not Black might be more interested in that nerdy Black guy. I don't know for sure. I got no. This is all anecdotal, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But it might be that a person whose mannerisms aren't very cool, hip, thuggish, whatnot, they have less dating opportunities within the Black community, so they might venture out, and so that shapes them. So then when they're that didn't happen to me actually, but I can see how that would happen. And so you go out into the world and you look. That's the template. You're looking for, someone who is outside of your race. I wouldn't call that self-hate, but maybe it's just that those bad relationships. But the self-hate part, that is troubling. That is troubling.
The self-hate comes only when you start degrading your own people. It has nothing to do with the fact that you entered into a different. Once you start saying, like I said, I'd never date a Black woman. Black women are all this. That is when that self-hate wheel starts turning, and that's a terrible.
Hold on. You know what? Let me push back a little bit. I would imagine that some Black men might say, it's not self-hate. It's just I've dated Black women, and those relationships don't work, right? Like I've been in 4 or 5 of them, and they just don't work. So I'm done. I'm quitting Black women, and I'm gonna date out. Now with that wouldn't be necessarily self-hate. That would just be, look.
Listen, my thing is we don't even have to take it there. If you just have a preference, if you just prefer white women, if that's just what you prefer, we don't even have to say you even tried to date Black women. I don't take that as initial self-hate. Again, once you start degrading your own people, and once you start saying, I'm not dating Black women because they're all this, I'm not dating Black women because they're all that, they all, in these negative stereotypes that we put on Black women a lot. You know what I'm saying? That is when the self-hate kicks in. If you have a preference, whatever your attraction is in that's your business. You know what I'm saying? I'm not in your head as to why someone may like, white women or be more attracted to white. Whatever has shaped you to be that's just who you are. It is what it is. I don't have time to fight with you about that. There's other things that we can work on as Black men and Black people in this community to improve our situation here. You know what I'm saying? I'm more interested in that. So again, I don't have the vanity that a lot of us have. I don't need your relationship to look like mine to be able to work with. I can tell by your actions. I can tell by talking to you whether you mean our community and whether you mean our people good. And once I make that determination, that's what's going to cause me to work with you. Not because you got a white wife at home or a Korean wife or a Latina wife or whatever. You know what I'm saying? We got to get to the point where we're judging the people that we're talking to, their intent, their heart, and their actions, and what they're doing in this community. Again, we can't just keep robbing people of their blackness because of the vanity thing. That's what I call it. It's the vanity dynamic. We have to have somebody say, well, I don't call myself Black American. I call myself ADOS. So if you don't call yourself ADOS, then I can't work with you. Oh, I don't call myself ADOS. I call myself a Moor. If we don't call yourself a Moor, that's the vanity thing. And that's easy to see very clearly that you're not interested in actually working to solve issues in our community. You're interested in working with people who resemble who you are so you can spread more of the same ideals. And that's a whole different issue. I don't have that. So your relationship doesn't have to look like mine for me to say, hey, you know, Roderick's a great brother. We're going to go out here. We're going to mentor some kids. We're going to give some money. We're going to do whatever we can do to make this area and folks in our community have a better life, at least for a day, if that's all we can do. You know, that's what it's about.
All right. Now, Wesley N. Chase, author of As the Chasm Grows, this has been an awesome conversation.
Thank you, sir.
I hope we do more. I've learned a lot. And it was wide ranging. So the next time we talk, we'll focus on something else, and it'll be more narrow. But I really want to learn as much as I can in this person. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Go pick up the book. Everybody, go pick up the book. Read the book. Support an author.
Right.
And so, like I said, I appreciate you reaching out, and you know, anytime.
Okay, appreciate it.
All right, you have a good one, brother.
All right.